Yeah,
So just go ahead, do whatever they want.
that's it. That's it. I'm at that
Yeah.
point today for sure. Well, man, it's
Mm.
great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. I'm looking forward to getting into your life as a leadership and development coach. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to begin our journey into your work by asking you, I know 4 years ago or so, 4.5, we were going through this pandemic. It was a big deal. I know we're all getting tired of talking about it, but it was such a shapeshifter for so many of us. How did you survive that time period, and how has it influenced the way that you do work now?
Oh my God, that's one hell of a question. Do you have a couple of days? The funny thing is that right before the pandemic, you have to bear in mind, I do not watch news. I do not read newspapers. I do not follow anything that regards to national or international news, especially, well, stuff, glances before my eyes and then I know who's elected, for instance. But anyway, and at that time, it was the same story. So let's say about September, October, this thing was brewing in Italy, and it was coming up, and suddenly stuff was going on, but I had no idea. And in November of 2019, I resigned from a gold platinum chair with all whistles and bells and whistles at IBM to do my own thing, to start my own company. So I didn't have a clue that there was going to be a lockdown or anything like that. So coming up to February, I had a beautiful full agenda with trainings, coachings, whatever you can think of as a coach and trainer. And then there was March, 13th of March, announcement, lockdown. My agenda was empty. Joe, really, I panicked for a week. I was like, what did I do? Why did I resign? I could have, go smooth sailing and just did my job and remotely because that was my job at IBM. I worked remotely full time. I did that for 6 years, 6 or 7 years before that. And the transition that happened then it was a gift for me. In the end, it was a gift to me. The time, it was pure misery because you had to scrabble and crab to whatever thing that you could do. And I found out that tenacity, grit, and consistency was the key to keep on rolling. So after that week of panic, I thought, okay, what can I do instead of what can't I do?
Yeah.
And you must also bear in mind that we also had the mandatory vaccinations that were coming through, and all those things were really shortly coming after that. I never got vaccinated, still haven't been. Because it's not that I had a rigid mindset or anything like that. I was like, I had COVID. I had it twice, and I had some issues with it, but I went through it quite okay, like a flu, let's say. And the third time I had it, I really had high fevers and so on. But I never had anything very harsh or life threatening. So at that point, business wise, I thought, what am I going to do? I accepted anything that came on my path. I just took on all the opportunities. And going from there, at some point, I was like, okay, so the coaching thing is not working that okay. Trainings are catching up, so I can do that online. But then suddenly, coaching was also starting to catch on. People here, because you have to see that Belgium is a small country. We drive anywhere within 2 hours. So all our customers are used to coming to an office, to a therapy room, and having our talks. At that time, that was simply not possible. But people were getting scared, they were getting anxious and lonely, and so on. So online was the solution, and that's where my business kind of lived off. But other things came after that. Yeah.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers. Let's say third graders, it's career day. One of the kids is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I only listen to people. That's what I do. Basically, I listen to people and they tell me their stories and they tell me their hardships. And the thing is, they're always talking about hardships from what they do on their daily basis as the big boss in the company. So I talk to a lot of C levels, which are CEOs, the big bosses in the company, and founders who have been building their business for quite a while. And they come to a point, where success is not, it's not something that's for the reach. They've already got success, but they come to a point where they are becoming, and I give it a name. It's called CEO disease or founder syndrome. And it comes down to becoming a micromanager. So they go into their company and they turn all the knobs and ask everybody what they need to do, or direct them in every little way. And it becomes kind of a lonely position. They get isolated because everybody looks up to them at some point. They become micromanagers so hard that people don't even think for themselves anymore. So they come to a point where either the employees become to a decision and paralysis, or even the leader becomes a at that point. So what I do daily is I listen to them and I guide them toward changing that mindset of micromanaging and asking everything from everybody and looking every little detail in their company. What I transform into is being radically truthful with themselves, finding a very deep connection within themselves. Because if you look at our human being, we are a being, we are to be, and that means that from within we have to be good in our own self to be able to improve our outside world. It's not the other way around. You don't have to look around and find improvements. It's within ourselves. So that's where I start with these. And then instead of, because like I said, they had a lot of success already. These guys are, they're a couple of theirs, they're millionaires, they have all the money they need, they have everything they need, but they feel empty. So they want to topple over to more fulfilling and feeling more impactful in life. So I teach them. Actually, I don't teach them; they know this, but they have to find out again that the journey is much more important than the destination.
Yeah.
So learning to enjoy every moment of what you're doing. That's what I basically do every day.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to ultimately grow up and become?
I wanted to be a police officer.
So did I.
There you
Yeah.
go.
There was a show when I was a kid called Chips, and it was the California Highway Patrol. And then as I got older, I saw the reality show Cops, and I was like, yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, that's a serious contrast. That's true.
Yeah.
I know
So it's
Chips. Yeah,
like
I love that show. Yeah.
yeah, it's time to move on. But so let me ask you this. How did you get to this point? How did you get to this point where you're helping high-powered people get to a better place? Take me back to your childhood, the foundational seeds that were planted that grew into who you are today.
I've been an overachiever my whole life. High achiever, whatever the name is. These are buzz names, these words. But these days. But the thing was, when I was a kid, in third grade, there was this organization that helped parents make decision on your education. And somehow somebody convinced my mom to put me back in second grade because I was not following, or I was not fast enough, or something like that. Years later, it came out that the teacher did not want to make the time to help me in little aspects because I had um, B levels and A levels. I was not a bad student, and I dragged that with me for a long time as I am not enough, so I need to achieve and show myself more, and etc. And at some point when I went to high school, my mom and dad, my mom is a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a bank clerk. He had one opportunity in his life to make an ambitious move, and he didn't feel good enough. So, if your parents don't feel good enough about themselves, you kind of get that influence, and it either switches into you go into high gear and try to show everybody you're good enough, or you get into the low gear and just live your life and stay low and don't like they said, high trees they catch the most wind. um and then in high school, my parents said, you know what, learn a trade, become somebody who has a good trade, and you'll always have a job. And I learned electromechanics. That was the educational path I took. I had no idea what I wanted to do. No idea. So I finished high school. I never continued studying because I did not know what I wanted to do. So I literally jumped on my bike, drove around, and found a job and started working. And what happened in those jobs was my natural being is leadership. And it's not that I need to be somebody who is going to manage people. No, and I'm a leader. I am going to guide people in the right direction by doing, by showing, by showing up, by acting, by asking them very annoying questions usually. But anyway, they love it because then they get triggered and they move forward. And I was continuously growing and growing, and I swapped from one job to another to grow in my being. But of course, if you're a high achiever, at some point there's this big metal thing called a hammer that kind of hits you in the head at some point, and you become to realize that you've been wearing a very big mask your whole life, and that's the point where I got a combination of a burnout and a depression. So this was very dark times for me. And when I got into that, at some point, I learned about personal improvement. This was just like two words I had never heard about because in my family, it was non existent. And I went a little bit into the spiritual thing as well to understand who I was as a spiritual being and so on. But I always tend to, balance those two, very rational and very spiritual. Always find those good combinations of those two. And I went into the personal development space and I found out about this crazy thing called coaching, which I've never heard before. It's like, yeah, I know about a coach on a football team, but not anything else. And that's how I toppled into what I became as a coach. So, in all honesty, Joe, don't ask me to come over to your house and install some electricity because I'm probably going to burn your house down.
I get it. You got to stay in your lane. So, who's been a hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in your work?
Two people. One's been Napoleon Hill. Not necessarily for Think and Grow Rich. It's more or less all the rest that he did. Andrew Carnegie linked to that, and Stephen Covey, definitely Stephen Covey, and Nikola Tesla, to be honest.
Wonderful. So, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Well, I think a lot of people might go for Elon Musk, and I would as well, just to have a good conversation with the guy. I don't always agree with him on everything he does. Um, and actually Will Smith. I know he doesn't have a good reputation these days, but the thing he's done in the past has been very inspirational for me on several levels. And then I forgot his name, and he just played Deadpool recently. Um, well, yeah, Deadpool.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan Reynolds?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
him as well, because he's been doing things that nobody else does.
Yeah. He
So
certainly has. Certainly has. So, what is the motivation for you every day to do this work? You have to give a lot of yourself to help others get to a better place, but you're a human being and a professional, and you have to grow. What is that collective energy every day for you?
people are my mirror. And if I meet somebody like yourself, we're having this conversation, there are things that I learn from you and you learn from me. And that's the whole motivation for me. I've been at a point where I did not feel fulfilled. I felt lost and so on. And that also motivates me to get people to a point where they just, get up in the morning. It's not that you don't have to have the ideal life and be happy all the time. No, not at all. On the contrary, you need the bad things to understand the good things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's one of the biggest motivations. Absolutely. It's just, helping people realize that there's more to life than pure accolades and financial gain.
So, of all of these things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Being me,
Yeah.
just being me. And especially the moments that I'm just sitting and enjoying what is. A lot of people have an issue with when I say this, but a lot of people and have actually got something they did, and I'm proud of everything I did, but just being me is one of the biggest achievements that I've been able to reach. you know Getting rid of all the history that I dragged with me, like I said earlier, with the swapping from third grade to second grade and stuff like that, it all dragged me down. And it's all in my backpack. I still, with all the love in the world, I still carry it with me because it's made who I am. But I've also learned to shed everything and become the pure me.
So, of all of these avenues that you've taken in life that have led you to this point, if you were to have a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you before this journey was starting in earnest, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led and chose and the wisdom you've gained along the way, what advice would you give your younger self?
I love that question because I would say nothing. I would say absolutely nothing because that guy, and I can remember him really, really well. Um, he was so freaking stubborn, he wouldn't even listen to me. But I find that everything that I've experienced in life is so unique that there's no way that I can influence my 18-year-old to give them advice and change anything or improve anything. Everything that I've done and experienced, the good and the bad, has made who I am. So I wouldn't give him any tips. It's maybe contradictory, but yeah, no.
No, I dig it. That's a great answer. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's a very beautiful question, honestly. I think I'm just a nice guy.
Yeah.
I have my darkness, I have my light, but I'm just a nice guy. And in essence, how I see myself is somebody who's striving to help others, not always succeeding, but still striving.
So, Nico, if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more, consult, anything to kind of get into a better place and to understand you and hire you, how do they do that?
They go to my website. It's just my name in one go, nicovandevenne.com, and reach out to me. Just contact me, whatever, on LinkedIn, whatever. I'm just the chatty guy anyway. So yeah, just give me a call.
I love it. Nico, this has been wonderful. And in light of what we've all kind of experienced on this side of the pond, this has been a very refreshing and kind of a cathartic kind of way of talking because I always love to talk to people from around the world to get kind of a pulse on things. And I love the logic and kind of the way that you went after this. So thank you for your questions and lending an ear because all of us Americans probably need it more than
In any case, I'm here, guys. I'm
I,
here.
absolutely. Absolutely. Nico, it's been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Continued success. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. Take care.